Okay, let's bring in Hussam Ayloush, who's the CEO of the Greater Los Angeles Area Office of the Council on American-Islamic Relations. He joins me from LA. Welcome to you, sir.
Thank you.
Let's just start with JD Vance's assessment of the situation. He says, look, it's two sides who hate each other. It's a very difficult situation. He thinks it's going kind of as well, actually, he said better than he expected. Would you agree with him?
Well, let's make it clear. There are no two sides of a war there. This is not a war. This is an extermination campaign. This is genocide. And to make it sound like these are two equal parties is part of the problem in itself. We've never been, as a country, I'm speaking as an American, we've never been an honest broker. So even the assessment is dishonest, because this is a one-sided war. It's a genocide. It's an occupation. It's an illegal occupation against a people that has little tools and means to defend itself. But going back to his assessment, things are going better than most of us expected, because knowing, as your correspondent mentioned earlier, there's little trust left in Netanyahu, even within the Trump administration, which has done everything, sticking its neck out, defending the Netanyahu, a wanted war criminal. Still there is little faith. The Netanyahu government has become a political liability to politicians, even in America itself today. And I can tell you, even within the support base of President Trump, there is a growing resentment and growing frustration with the Netanyahu government, because it's now costing politicians in America political liability.
68,000 plus people killed in Gaza, and I don't recall ever once President Trump criticizing Israel or its leadership. But because of what you just said, this frustration and this desire for Trump to get his name in history as the guy who brought peace to the region, do you think we will at some point hear him criticize Netanyahu, and will we see him pressure Israel?
I think that will continue to be behind the scenes, and then every once in a while a flare-up that we get on a tweet, on X, or but no, for the time being, I think there's enough support. You know, when you see Jared Kushner as part of the delegations, that means publicly the president, unfortunately, will continue to back Netanyahu while sending messages, sometimes public, mostly privately, that he needs to stop it. Basically, this genocide is no longer. I mean, and even supporters of Israel have said, and President Trump has said it, it's now causing Israel damage that's probably irreparable at a public opinion level, and even Western countries in Europe can no longer defend, excuse, and justify the genocide. Everybody knows this is about an occupation. This is not about a ceasefire. This is about peace, and peace requires justice, and that justice preconditionally requires an end to that injustice, and that injustice is the 78 years dispossession of the Palestinian people, including the occupation of the West Bank of Gaza. As we're looking, the eyes are on Gaza itself, but action by the Israeli government is happening in the West Bank. Hamas doesn't control the West Bank. Israel continues to be targeting or unleashing its most radical and violent settlers on the Palestinian people, grabbing land, confiscating land, targeting, raiding refugee camps, cities, allowing the worst violence to happen. There's no Hamas there. There are no hostages there. And the world is watching what is happening. And I think President Trump, the fact that he has sent Vice President Vance to deal with the issue, it's clearly about ending this level of frustration. I don't know how much response we're going to get from Netanyahu.
Hussam, in order to get to where we are now, to get to the deal being made, Israel, well, the United States really, had to listen to Hamas to an extent, because they did hold hostages and they had some leverage. As we understand it, they've given that up now. So as we go to phase two, do you think that Hamas will have any say? Will they be at the table in negotiations? Will there be any Palestinian voice, Palestinian Authority, for example, at the table, now that there's no leverage on that side? Or is Israel and the United States going to decide everything among themselves?
Yeah, a couple of factors. One is not even the PA, with all its bending backward for the Israelis, not even the PA is acceptable to the Israelis, because any legitimate voice of the Palestinian people is rejected by Israel, because the current government does not even recognize Palestinians as a deserving people to be represented. There's no talk about a Palestinian state. There's no talk about ending. All we're talking about is a cessation of fire and Palestinian accepting, submitting to the Israeli control calmly, quietly, without resisting. They would like to see a subdued people living in a cage without resistance. And that is, even the US knows that's impossible. Hamas is only a byproduct, a symptom of the problem. It's not the problem, because the reality is, was there peace? Was there justice before Hamas? Hamas was established when? 1987? Were the Palestinians living in peace? Were they celebrating their independence? No. People know that what we're dealing with is, even if today Hamas or the other factions in Gaza hand over their weaponry, would the Palestinian frustration and misery end? No. And as long as there is occupation, there's going to be resistance. That's nothing unique to Palestinians. They're not a special people in any way. They're like any other people, under occupation, under dehumanization. Eventually, they're pushed into a corner. They are going to ask for their dignity, for their freedom. So if Hamas disappears today, the problem does not disappear. And I think politicians in America, in the West in general, and I think Arab and Muslim leaders of Muslim governments have to speak up louder. They have to talk about, and I think they are, and think they need to do more into the ear of President Trump to say, you wanna be credited in bringing peace. By the way, the conflict, somebody needs to tell them, the conflict is not 3,000-year old. The conflict is 78-year old. If you want to bring peace, you have to remove the cause that's preventing that peace, and that is the Israeli arrogance, the Israeli apartheid state system, and Israeli occupation. People in the region can get along. Muslims, Jews, Christians have had thousands of years of history of getting along. They will find a way to get along. It is just that the existing government, or I would say even past few governments in Israel, have made it clear they do not wish to see a Palestinian state, because for them it's a zero-sum game. A Palestinian state is a threat to them in their mind. And as long as you continue to oppress people, yeah, maybe it is a threat. End the oppression.
Hussam, thank you for coming on to give us your perspective. My guest is Hussam Ayloush from the Council on American-Islamic Relations. Appreciate it.